You know, on the packed, noisy streets of Pakistan, something really interesting is happening. A quiet revolution is starting to take shape. And it's a story where technology, the environment, and economics all meet on the back of an electric scooter. So today, let's dive into how one company is trying to solve two massive national problems, pollution and poverty, all at the same time.
It sounds almost crazy, doesn't it? Can a single scooter ride actually save a city? That's the big question at the heart of what we're breaking down today. Is this just a bunch of hype, or could this be a real, workable blueprint for the future?
All right, so to really get the solution, you've got to understand just how big the problem is. For millions of people in Pakistan cities, getting around isn't just an inconvenience, it's a full-blown crisis, one that's hurting their wallets and the climate.
And this, right here, paints a perfect picture of a system that's just not working for anyone. So you're a passenger, and a 50-kilometer ride costs you about 600 Pakistani rupees. That's a huge chunk of a daily wage for a lot of people. But get this, the driver, after he's paid for gas and upkeep, he's only walking away with 234 rupees, less than half. It's a total lose-lose.
And then there's the environmental cost, which is just staggering. You've got over 25 million petrol motorcycles on the road, and together, they're spewing out more than 90,000 tons of CO2 every single day. It's a huge reason why cities like Lahore and Karachi are consistently, unfortunately, ranked among the most polluted cities on the entire planet.
So, with a problem that massive, where do you even begin to fix it? Well, let's flip over to the solution and see how one company is trying to disrupt this whole mess with an all-electric answer.
Okay, so meet OxygenRide. This is not just another ride-hailing app you'd find on your phone. Their whole deal is different because they are focused exclusively on electric scooters. That's it. Their entire mission is built around two things: making rides sustainable for the planet and affordable for the people.
So let's look at the numbers. Take that same 50-kilometer trip, the old way. The passenger pays 600 rupees. The driver, he pockets just 234. And that one ride pumps about 4.5 kilograms of CO2 into the air. All right, remember those numbers.
Now, check this out. The new way with an OxygenRide e-bike. That same 50-kilometer trip now costs the passenger just 425 rupees. That's a huge saving. But here's the kicker. The driver's profit actually goes up to 361 rupees. And the carbon emissions? Zero. A big fat zero. It is literally cheaper for the rider, more profitable for the driver, and way, way cleaner for the city.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. This sounds a little too good to be true, doesn't it? How can that even work? Well, let's pull back the curtain on the economics that makes this whole thing tick.
I mean, this chart just says it all. Look at that jump in a driver's take-home pay for the exact same amount of work. Going from 234 rupees to 361 rupees, that's not just a small bump. For people trying to make a living, that's a genuinely life-changing difference. It's a huge incentive to make the switch to electric.
And here is the secret sauce, the magic behind those profits. The cost to actually run an e-bike is an incredible 77% lower than a petrol one. Think about it. A full battery charge costs next to nothing compared to a tank of gas, and there are way fewer moving parts, so maintenance is a breeze. That massive cost saving is the economic engine that powers this entire model.
So how does the company stay in business? Well, it's actually a pretty simple, proven model. They just take around a 15% commission from each ride. It's a standard in the industry, and because their drivers are making so much more money, the model is healthy and sustainable for everybody involved.
So the economics totally make sense. But why now? Why is this happening at this exact moment in Pakistan? Well, it turns out it's because of this really unique set of circumstances, a real convergence of market forces.
This timeline really shows what I mean by a perfect storm. First, you have the big guys like Uber and Careem pulling out or scaling way back. That leaves a massive hole in the market. At the exact same time, people are getting really interested in e-bikes. Sales jumped over 60%. And then, the final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the most important, huge government support.
And we are not talking about some small tax break here. The government is committing over 100 billion rupees, that's about 350 million US dollars, in subsidies just for things like e-bikes. This is a massive financial push to fundamentally change how the country gets around.
Of course, there's always one big hurdle, right? The upfront cost of buying a new electric bike. So how do you get drivers over that hump? Well, it's this really smart three-step approach.
First, the government subsidies slash the price right off the top. Then, OxygenRide teams up with banks to give drivers affordable loans. And what's the result? You democratize access. You turn what was a huge financial barrier into a real opportunity for people to become entrepreneurs.
Okay, so we've seen the business model and the perfect timing. But what happens when you zoom out? What happens when this thing scales up? Well, the impact goes way, way beyond just one cheap, clean ride.
Let's start small again, at the micro level. Every single time a passenger takes a 50-kilometer trip on an e-bike instead of a petrol one, 4.5 kilograms of CO2 are kept out of the atmosphere. That is a real, tangible win for the environment, and it's happening thousands of times every day. Now, let's scale that up. Let's say they get to a pretty modest scale of just 5,000 rides a day. Those individual savings suddenly add up to 225 tons of CO2 avoided every year. That's like taking dozens and dozens of cars off the road for good. And honestly, that's just the start of where they plan to go.
And this is where it gets really cool, because this is a perfect example of a private company's success lining up perfectly with the national goal. Pakistan has this huge, ambitious target, cut 4.5 million tons of CO2 by 2030. Every single trip on an OxygenRide scooter is a small step toward hitting that massive climate goal.
But you know, the impact here isn't just about the environment. It's deeply social too. This model gives low-income earners a real path to owning their own business and boosting their earnings significantly. It also has dedicated programs to bring more women into the workforce as drivers. And for everyone else in the city, it just means cleaner air and quieter streets. It's a win for the quality of life all around.
Which brings us right back to our big question at the start. We've seen a model that's cheaper for riders, much more profitable for drivers, and a whole lot cleaner for the city. It perfectly aligns financial incentives with huge environmental and social benefits. So the thought I want to leave you with is this. Is this the new blueprint? Is this combination of tech, smart economics, and government backing the way forward for green transportation not just in Pakistan, but in emerging markets all over the globe?